We're on our last chapter. It's late medieval Italy. Important themes to keep in mind. Patronage had a large impact on the style and requirements for artworks at this time. Artworks commissioned for large cathedrals had more standardized restrictions for public altar pieces. Looser and more personalized needs of a private patron. The Medici, they're a powerful political family. Their support of the arts made Florence the cradle of the Renaissance. There's a focus on the individual artist. Artists began to be considered as creative geniuses. It's defined by their innovative and unique stylistic approaches. There were rivaling schools of painting in the city-states of Florence and Siena. Here's a map of Renaissance Italy, 1350 to 1600. Late Gothic art in Italy is a bridge between the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Italian artists broke away from Byzantine traditions and established strong schools of painting in the Trecento. Here's a few vocabulary words. We have the altarpiece, which is a panel that's painted or sculpted representing a religious subject that's placed above and behind an altar in a church. Two panels are diptychs, three panels are triptychs, multiple panels are polyptychs. Chiaroscuro is literally translated as light dark, which became really prominent in the Renaissance. It's the use of light and dark to produce three-dimensional modeling, and they started using this type of modeling during this time. Foreshortening is the use of perspective to show the extension of an object back into space. So as things recede, they get smaller. Fresco is Italian for fresh, a mural painting technique involving the application of permanent lime-proof pigments diluted in water on freshly laid lime plaster. Bone fresco involves the application of pigment on several layers of wet plaster, while fresco secco refers to the painting directly on dried lime plaster. Gilding is a very thin bounded gold leaf applied with glue to a surface. It emphasizes spiritual and heavenly subject matter of religious works. The giornata means a day in Italian, the section of plaster that a fresco painter expects to complete in one day session to keep the plaster from drying before the pigment can be added. Italo-Byzantine style, the Maniera Greca, is the use of a Byzantine style in Italy, especially prevalent after the fall of Constantinople in 1204, which led to the migration of Byzantine artists to Italy. The Maesta is a scene of the Virgin Mary, Madonna, seated on a throne, holding the infant Jesus in her lap, often flanked by angels, saints, or prophets. It's literally translated majesty. Tempera is a paint made of pigment mixed with egg yolk, glue, or casing. Artist names, they had a place of birth or adopted hometown nicknames. Leonardo from Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci, what's yours? So they had some variations. It'd be like Dominic from the Venetian, or Dominic de Venice, or Dominic Venetian. The altarpiece, it's a primary artistic product of the medieval period. In the 1200s, the ritual of the Mass was moved in front of the altar. The priest would stand on his back with his back to the congregation, leaving the altar table open for large-scale religious imagery. The growth of the cities in Western Europe, there's a growth of the institutionalized churches and cities, and increasingly wealthy patrons of the arts who often commissioned altarpieces for private chapels. Typical materials used to create altarpieces throughout the Italian Renaissance were tempera paint on wood panel with gold leaf. Late medieval Christian art in Italy, the Italo-Byzantine style, or Maniera Greca. The similarities here, we have the Byzantine mosaic of Justinian, which is Byzantine artwork on the right, and then we have Italo-Byzantine style on the left by Berlinghieri, St. Francis altarpiece. Similarities between the two are gold, an indistinct background, lack of modeling on the people, and any kind of architecture, and the depth and favor of stylized forms and flatness. They have floating figures with elongated bodies, small heads, and almond-shaped eyes. The Ducentos, the 13th century. Here is the Berlinghieri St. Francis altarpiece. This is an example of Maniera Greca. It's the use of the Byzantine style in Italy, especially prevalent after the fall of Constantinople in 1204, which led to the migration of Byzantine artists to Italy. The Manera Greca is characterized by gilded backgrounds, flattened space, and striations to suggest folds of fabric. St. Francis is shown in the middle. He has his robe, and stigmata, which are the bodily wounds in his feet and hands. It's the earliest securely dated portrayal of St. Francis of Assisi. The monastic order of the Franciscans, which St. Francis belonged, were concerned for the poor. They preached to large urban crowds, and they taught common man to have personal relationship with Christ. Cimabue is breaking away from the Italo-Byzantine Manera Greca style in this artwork. Madonna enthroned with angels and prophets from Santa Trinita, Florence, Italy, circa 1280 to 1290. It's tempera and gold leaf on wood. The gold background composition relies on Byzantine models. There's more a sense of depth. She has more of a 3D body, and all the bodies are more 3D, and the architecture is more 3D. There's greater naturalism. Cimabue depicted the throne receding into space. Also, drapery is more dimensional than the Manera Greca. We have overlapping bodies of angels, which reinforce a sense of depth, not so flat. Trecenta in the 1300s. We know the Renaissance is a rebirth of art and culture, a revived interest in classical cultures during this time. And the veneration of classical antiquity as a model was central to this rebirth. A growing concern with the natural world, the individual, and humanity's worldly existence is characterized in the Renaissance period, which is the 14th through the 16th century. Humanism in the Renaissance, there's an emphasis on education and on expanding knowledge, especially classical antiquity, the exploration of individual potential and a desire to excel, and commitment to civic responsibility and moral duty. The Black Death, also known as the pestilence, the Black Plague or the bubonic plague, or less commonly the Black Plague, was one of the most devastating pandemics in human history during this time, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 75 to 200 million people in Eurasia, peaking in Europe from 1347 to 1351. Here's a fresco in the Fourbourg Abbey of Saint Andre de Lavaudo, France, 14th century, depicting the plague personified as a woman. There were building overhauls, major building campaigns for both religious and secular buildings. There were new cathedrals in Florence, Siena, and Orvieto, new administration buildings in Florence, Siena, and Venice. Here we have the Duomo, Santa Maria del Fiore in Florence, Italy. It's the Tuscan Romanesque revetment of the Florentine Duomo brings it closest to the early Christian architectural tradition. The church is more closely linked to early Christian Italy than to Gothic France. And its bell tower was designed by Giotto in 1334. Here we have Trecento, 14th century Siena. There's more careful modeling of bodies, which can be seen protruding from beneath their garments. The throne creates a more realistic sense of architectural space. This shows a break from the traditional frontality of poses, instead favoring graceful and individual poses distinctive to each figure. And there's dynamic drapery. This is created by Duccio. It's a Virgin and Child enthroned with saints. It's the principal panel of the front of the Maesta altarpiece from Siena Cathedral, 1308 to 1311. Here we have the front of the altarpiece, the Maesta altarpiece by Duccio, and it's in the Siena Cathedral, 1308 to 1311. And then on the right we have the back of the altarpiece, which has these 14 panels illustrating the Passion of Jesus. We have the Trecento in Florence. This is a Giotto piece, Madonna enthroned. It's the end of the medieval painting in Italy. It's the beginning of a new naturalistic approach to art. Giotto revived classical naturalism by giving his figures substance and bulk in contrast to the Manera Greca of Cimabue. Statuesque, weighty figures cast shadows and drapery. Shading suggests the illusion of 3 dimensions. Here's a comparison of Cimabue and Giotto's Madonnas Enthroned. Cimabue and Giotto had a different approach to space and to the relationship between space and form. Giotto created the illusion of 3-dimensional space, and his figures turn and move in a natural way, and Cimabue's Christ child has the proportions and gestures of a man. Here we have the Arena Chapel, and these are painted by Giotto. It's the interior of the Arena Chapel in Padua, Italy, 1305 to 1306. Banker Enrico Scrovini built the chapel on a site adjacent to his palace and consecrated it in 1305. The chapel and its frescoes were meant to help him earn a place in heaven, but also to specifically atone for his family's sins, having practiced usury or money lending, which is considered a sin. Several of the fresco scenes speak directly to this concern, such as the scene of Judas receiving money for his betrayal of Christ. 38 panels depict the lives of the Virgin, her parents, and Jesus' Last Judgment is also depicted, and it is built over an ancient arena, hence the name. Here we have Giotto's Lamentation in the Arena Chapel. Giotto depicts humanism and emotions of his subjects in a new way. His work demonstrates a greater desire to represent the natural earthly world and the experience of humans within it. He got rid of the gold leaf background. Lamentation is a popular subject matter. Giotto uses foreshortening in the flying angels in the sky, so the bodies are receding into space. For International Gothic, it's a style of the 14th and 15th century here in Siena. The painting this type of painting was begun by Simone Martini, who fused the French Gothic manner with Sienese art. This style appealed to the aristocracy because of its brilliant color, lavish costumes, intricate ornamentation, and themes involving splendid processions of knights and ladies. In the Siena Cathedral, 1333. This is the Annunciation. This is in Siena. Frescoes serve to remind the rulers to serve the citizens justly, depicting the juxtaposed effects of good and bad governance on the city and the country, unnaturally large, similarly emphasizing the variety of daily activities that support the happy and prosperous urban culture. This is by Lorenzetti. Peaceful City, it's a detail from the effects of good government in the city and in the country. It's the east wall of the Sala della Pace in the Palazzo Pubblico, Siena, Italy, 1338 to 1339. We have the Doge's Palace looking north in Venice, Italy. It was begun in 1340 to 1345. It was expanded and remodeled in 1424 to 1438. It is a late Gothic architectural style example in Venice. Doge's Palace, Venetian, is where the Republic seat of government was located. Venetian variation of Northern Gothic, pointed arches, ogee arches, and quatrefoil medallions. It's a colorful, decorative, light, and airy in appearance.